My sister forwarded a fake pregnancy test result to my fiancé, which made him break off our engagement. She had no clue that I'd been secretly footing her college tuition and paying for all the household expenses. So, I cut off the support and walked away. Can you imagine discovering, minutes before your own wedding rehearsal, that your sister, your maid of honor, had faked a pregnancy, with complications, just to hijack your special day? It felt like a punch to the gut, but what happened next ripped our entire family apart, exposing a web of lies and financial secrets none of us saw coming. This wasn't just family drama. This was an emotional explosion years in the making. Hi, I'm Scarlett, and this story, well, it's about how my family imploded, then slowly, painstakingly, rebuilt itself. If you've ever felt invisible, taken for granted, or betrayed by the people you love most, trust me, you'll want to hear this. Growing up, my sister Stephanie and I had what looked like a typical sister relationship on the surface. But underneath? Oh, it was a different story. She's 4 years younger than me, and from the moment she was born, she was the baby of the family. My parents just adored her. And no matter how old we got, that favoritism never faded. I don't think they ever truly saw how it chipped away at my self-esteem, how it affected everything between us. From elementary school, I was the responsible one, the achiever. I did chores without being asked, kept straight A's, joined every club. Stephanie? She could do no wrong. Throw a tantrum about cleaning her room? Mom and Dad would just do it for her. Failed a test? Oh, the teacher just doesn't understand Stephanie's unique creativity. It was a constant pattern. I had to earn every crumb of praise through sheer effort, while Stephanie received endless adoration just for existing. Scarlett, you're the older sister. My mom would sigh whenever I dared to complain about the unfairness. You need to set an example. That phrase became the soundtrack of my childhood, a constant reminder that my feelings, my needs, always came second to Stephanie's comfort. Despite that total lack of parental support, I poured myself into my studies. I earned a full scholarship to an Ivy League school, majored in computer science and business. My parents came to my graduation, of course, but honestly, they spent most of the day talking about Stephanie's struggles with her college applications. It was a subtle, but effective, way to minimize my achievement. After college, I landed a job at a tech startup, one of the very first employees. Those early years were brutal, I won't lie. 80-hour work weeks. Sleeping under my desk sometimes. Living on ramen just to save a few extra bucks. But the sacrifice paid off. By 26, I was the chief technology officer. And by 28, when the company was acquired by a major tech giant, I walked away with enough money to never work again if I chose not to. The irony wasn't lost on me. My financial success coincided perfectly with my parents' business collapsing. They'd owned a small retail store for 2 decades, always successful. But a string of bad decisions, an economic downturn, and competition from big-box stores pushed them to the brink of bankruptcy. They didn't tell me directly, of course. My dad was too proud. I only found out when my mom called me, sobbing, because they couldn't make their mortgage payment. That night, I made a decision that would forever change our family dynamic. I had to help them. But I couldn't bear the thought of them feeling like failures. And honestly, I didn't want Stephanie to know I had money. She'd always shown this unsettling jealousy whenever anything good happened in my life. I mean, that Thanksgiving when I brought my boyfriend, Mark, home. Wow. Mark was successful in his own right, a talented architect with his own firm. He was kind, intelligent, respected me. The moment Stephanie met him, I saw it. The shift. Her laugh became louder. She'd touch his arm a little too often. She managed to casually mention being single at least 5 times during dinner. Your sister seems nice, Mark said afterwards, completely oblivious. That's Mark for you, always seeing the best in people. She can be, I responded vaguely, not wanting to taint his impression with my complicated feelings. By this point, I had already set up the financial arrangement that would become the epicenter of our family drama. Through a labyrinth of shell companies and trusts, I was secretly paying my parents' mortgage, their car payments, their health insurance, even their credit card bills. I'd also created a scholarship for Stephanie's college tuition and was covering her apartment near campus. None of them knew the money came from me. My parents believed they'd qualified for some government financial assistance program. Stephanie thought her scholarship came from a generous alumni foundation. I wanted to help them. I truly did. But I didn't want to become the family ATM. And more importantly, I couldn't stand the thought of hearing my parents gush about Stephanie getting help, while I'd had to claw and fight for everything I ever achieved. Looking back, I know I was enabling some seriously unhealthy patterns. Instead of helping them grow, I was just perpetuating the cycle. But at the time, it felt like the kind of solution. I thought I was preserving their dignity while ensuring they were taken care of. What I didn't realize was just how spectacularly my secrecy would collide with Stephanie's ingrained jealousy, creating a perfect storm that nearly destroyed us all. The acquisition of my tech company wasn't just successful, it was the kind of exit that makes headlines in industry publications. We developed this incredible algorithm, and a major tech giant simply had to have it. When the dust settled, I found myself with a net worth of over $12 million. Before my 30th birthday, I moved a good chunk of it into conservative investments, donated to causes I believed in, bought a comfortable but not extravagant house, and set aside a significant portion specifically for my family's needs. I wasn't flashy. I drove the same old Honda. I lived well below my means. Very few people knew about my financial situation, and that's exactly how I wanted it. When I first learned about my parents' business failing, the sheer depth of their desperation was shocking. 3 months behind on their mortgage, credit cards maxed out, predatory loans just to keep the store afloat. The burden of that knowledge was immense. These were the people who had always projected themselves as financially savvy, who had lectured me about responsibility, all while indulging Stephanie's every whim. "Miss Preston, are you sure you want to structure things this way?" My financial advisor, Thomas, asked, looking concerned. Family financial entanglements can get complicated very quickly. "I'm sure," I insisted. "They absolutely cannot know it's coming from me." Thomas was a genius. He helped me create several legal entities to act as buffers. A trust that appeared to be from a distant relative. A fake scholarship fund for Stephanie. A business grant program that would select my parents for assistance. The paperwork was all legitimate, but the money? All mine. Within weeks, my parents received a letter about a special refinancing program that would cut their mortgage payment by 60%. Another letter offered a business stabilization grant. And Stephanie? She got notice that an anonymous donor had selected her for a full-ride scholarship, tuition, housing, even a monthly stipend. The change in their lives was instant. Dramatic. My parents stopped looking so stressed. Stephanie moved from her cramped dorm into a luxury apartment. Their gratitude was directed at faceless institutions, at lucky circumstances, never at me. For a while, this arrangement felt perfect. I could help my family without altering our relationship. But cracks, of course, began to appear. Despite having her education and living expenses fully covered, Stephanie started dropping classes. By junior year, she was barely enrolled part-time, though she told my parents she was focusing on her major. Meanwhile, I was getting the real enrollment reports as the scholarship provider. More concerning was her pattern of relationships and jobs. She'd date someone for a few months, create a massive drama, break up, then spend lavishly to heal her broken heart. She'd get hired somewhere, work a few weeks, clash with management, quit or get fired, then take months to find another job, all while maintaining her luxury lifestyle thanks to my scholarship stipend. When Stephanie maxed out her first credit card at 21, my mom called me, distraught. "Scarlett, I hate to ask, but your sister's in a bit of trouble. We've helped as much as we can." I pretended to contribute a small amount, then secretly paid off the entire card through my financial network. This pattern repeated several times over the next few years, the amounts getting larger each time. Then Mark proposed. After 2 years of dating, I was ecstatic. We planned a wedding for the following spring. Nothing ostentatious, just beautiful, meaningful. My parents insisted on contributing, so I arranged for them to receive an unexpected insurance reimbursement they could use for wedding expenses. Again, my money, their pride. As wedding planning progressed, Stephanie's behavior became increasingly erratic. As my maid of honor, she was involved in many aspects, but she seemed to sabotage everything. Appointments mysteriously rescheduled. Deposits went missing. Vendor communications accidentally deleted from her phone. I tried to chalk it up to her general disorganization, but a pattern was emerging that I couldn't ignore. One night, while checking my financial monitoring systems, I noticed unusual withdrawals from Stephanie's account. She'd visited an urgent care clinic and made several purchases at a medical supply store. Around the same time, I found evidence she'd been researching pregnancy symptoms, medical terminology, and how to create fake medical documents. A cold dread washed over me. I upped the monitoring on her accounts and communications, justifying the invasion of privacy with my rapidly escalating concern. What I discovered was worse than I could have imagined. Stephanie wasn't just jealous of my wedding. She was actively plotting to ruin it. Wedding planning should have been one of the happiest times of my life. Instead, Stephanie turned it into a minefield of stress and doubt. The first big red flag? 3 months before the wedding. I arrived at the florist, only to be told my appointment had been rescheduled. Stephanie had called, claiming to be my assistant. When I confronted her, she feigned innocence. "Oh, I thought I told you. I must have forgotten to text you after they called me. Wedding brain, right?" She laughed it off, but something in her eyes didn't match her carefree explanation. A week later, our venue called, panicked. They hadn't received the deposit to secure our date. I distinctly remembered giving Stephanie a check to deliver, as the venue was near her apartment. The check had been cashed, but the money never reached the venue. Stephanie claimed there must have been a mix-up and offered to handle it. I later discovered she'd deposited the check into her own account and used my money to make a down payment on a new car. "It was just a timing issue with my account," she'd explained. "I was going to transfer it this week." I chose to believe her, still wanting to see the best in my sister. I chalked it up to her typical financial irresponsibility, not malice. Willfully blind, looking back. The engagement party provided even more evidence of Stephanie's true intentions. Mark's brother, James, pulled me aside. "I don't want to cause drama, Scarlett," he said uncomfortably, "but your sister's been texting Mark quite a bit, asking him to meet for coffee to discuss wedding surprises for you." Mark confirmed this when I asked him privately, showing me the increasingly flirtatious messages he'd been politely deflecting. He hadn't mentioned them because he didn't want to create tension between us. "I thought she was just being friendly," he said, troubled. "Should I be worried?" "No," I assured him, though worry was gnawing at me. "I'll handle Stephanie." When I confronted her, she burst into tears, claiming she was just trying to make sure Mark was good enough for me. Her performance was Oscar-worthy, complete with trembling lips and glistening eyes. I almost bought it until I saw her quickly check her reflection in a nearby mirror to see how she looked while crying. Around this time, Stephanie started mentioning mysterious doctor appointments and vague health concerns. At first, she was coy, dropping hints like breadcrumbs. "Oh, I don't want to worry anyone," she'd sigh dramatically at family dinner. "But the doctor wants to run some additional tests. It's probably nothing." My mom would immediately go into a full panic, demanding details, offering to accompany Stephanie to every appointment. My dad would grow quiet, his face etched with worry. The spotlight, of course, remained on Stephanie for the rest of the evening. Any mention of my wedding plans forgotten. During bridesmaid dress fittings, Stephanie caused another scene. She claimed she needed a larger size because she was retaining water due to her medical condition. When the seamstress suggested simple alterations, Stephanie became tearful. "You don't understand," she whispered, loudly enough for everyone to hear. "There might be a reason I need extra room in a few months, if you know what I mean." The other bridesmaids immediately swarmed her with questions and congratulations, despite Stephanie's theatrical insistence that it was too early to say anything definite. I watched this performance with growing suspicion, noting how her eyes kept darting to gauge my reaction. My doubts multiplied, but still, family loyalty, or maybe just a desperate hope, kept me from voicing them. Then, the final piece. I found Stephanie's diary while helping my parents clean their attic. I knew I shouldn't read it. But when I saw Mark's name and mine repeatedly mentioned, my curiosity, combined with dread, overrode all ethics. The entries confirmed my worst fears. Asterisk, Scarlett always gets everything. The perfect grades, the perfect job, the perfect fiancé. Mom and Dad pretend to be proud of me too, but I see how they look at her. Now she's having this big wedding while I'm still single. It's not fair. But I have a plan that will make everyone forget about Scarlett's perfect day. By the time I'm done, all anyone will remember about this wedding is me. Asterisk, another entry detailed her research into creating fake medical documents and her plan to announce a pregnancy, then complications, during the wedding festivities, specifically to steal the spotlight. She'd even practiced her concerned but brave face in the mirror. I should have confronted her right then. But a part of me, a deep, wounded part, couldn't believe my own sister would go this far. I needed more evidence. And unfortunately, Stephanie was about to provide it. As wedding week arrived, and family gathered from across the country, Stephanie's health concerns intensified. She had scheduled her dramatic revelation for the rehearsal dinner, where she would have the largest, most captive audience. I watched her preparations with a growing sense of dread and a cold, hard determination. She had no idea I knew her plan. She had no idea how much power I actually held over her life. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change our family forever. The night of the rehearsal dinner, I slipped a folder of financial documents into my purse. Irrefutable evidence of my years of support. If Stephanie wanted to play with fire, she was about to learn I controlled the entire damn forest. Our rehearsal dinner was at the Belmont, a beautiful, upscale restaurant with a private dining room overlooking the San Antonio skyline. Mark and I had chosen it for its intimate atmosphere, its exceptional food. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the long mahogany table where 40 of our closest friends and family gathered. The room buzzed with conversation and laughter. I should have been savoring these moments. Instead, my attention was glued to Stephanie, who was acting increasingly strange. She kept checking her phone, stepping away for mysterious calls, whispering with a friend who wasn't even part of the wedding party. She'd chosen this form-fitting dress that really emphasized her midsection, which she kept rubbing absently, ensuring everyone noticed. "Are you feeling okay, Stephanie?" my mother asked, loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "You seem uncomfortable, sweetheart." "I'm fine, Mom," Stephanie replied with a brave, but clearly fake, smile. "Just a little tired. The doctor said I need to rest more, in my condition." My mother's eyes widened, and she immediately launched into a hushed, but animated, conversation with Stephanie. I watched them from across the room, noting how Stephanie had strategically positioned herself so most guests could observe their private discussion. Mark approached, handing me a glass of champagne. "Everything okay? You've barely smiled all evening." "Just wedding nerves," I lied, not wanting to ruin his night with my suspicions. "I'm going to check on the seating arrangements." Instead, I watched Stephanie. Finally, she put down her phone to go to the restroom. The moment she disappeared down the hallway, I made my move. Her designer purse sat unattended at her place setting, her phone on top, still unlocked. I knew I had maybe 2 minutes. My heart pounded like a drum. I felt like a thief, but this was about truth. A text conversation with someone named Jess was open on the screen. Stephanie Jess, the fake report is perfect. Doctor's office letterhead and everything. Jess OMG, are you really going through with this? Stephanie hell yes. The announcement tonight. Then complications during the ceremony. All eyes on me. Not Miss Perfect. Jess what if someone calls the doctor? Stephanie no one would dare. Besides, I'll have a miscarriage after the honeymoon. Perfect timing to ruin their return. Jess your sister will hate you forever. Stephanie she'll get over it. Besides, she has everything else. I deserve one day where people care about me. My hands trembled with a sickening mix of rage and heartbreak. I scrolled quickly, Finding photos of the forged pregnancy documents, details of her plan to fake crying spells, and eventually, a dramatic collapse during our vows. I quickly snapped photos of the conversations with my own phone, then returned Stephanie's phone exactly as I found it. When Stephanie returned, our eyes met across the room. I maintained a neutral expression, but something in my gaze must have alarmed her, because she quickly looked away and busied herself talking to one of the groomsmen. Dinner was served, and as coffee and dessert arrived, my father stood to make a toast. Just as he raised his glass, Stephanie dramatically placed her hand on her stomach and gasped. The timing was impeccable. She had interrupted the father of the bride, moments before he could praise his daughter. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice carrying perfectly across the now silent room. "I wasn't going to say anything this weekend because I didn't want to take attention away from Scarlett and Mark, but—" She paused for effect, tears welling in her eyes. "I've been having some complications with my pregnancy. The doctor said I need to take it easy, but I wanted to be here for my sister." The room erupted in concerned murmurs. My mother rushed to Stephanie's side. My father stood frozen, his toast forgotten. Mark looked at me, confused, clearly wondering if I'd known about this. A strange calm descended over me. I stood up, wine glass in hand. The room quieted as people noticed me preparing to speak. "Thank you for your concern for my sister," I said, my voice steady, clear. "But I think we should clarify something. Stephanie, would you like to tell everyone the truth about your pregnancy, or should I?" Stephanie's face paled, but she recovered quickly. "Scarlett, I know you're upset about the timing, but this isn't about you for once." I smiled tightly. "You're right. It isn't about me. It's about you lying to everyone in this room." "There is no pregnancy, is there, Stephanie?" Gasps rippled through the room. Stephanie's expression hardened. "How dare you? Why would I lie about something like this?" "To ruin my wedding, according to your text with Jess." I held up my phone, showing the screenshots. The fake doctor's report was a nice touch. Very convincing letterhead. Stephanie's face contorted with rage, then shifted to a smug, defiant smile. "You went through my phone. That's a new low, Scarlett. Always the perfect sister, right? Well, at least I don't pretend to be something I'm not. Everyone thinks you're so successful, but you're just a pathetic control freak who can't stand when someone else gets attention." It was the moment I'd been waiting for. I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder I'd prepared. "Speaking of control," I said quietly, "did you ever wonder how you could afford that luxury apartment on part-time retail wages? Or how our parents magically recovered from near bankruptcy 5 years ago? Or where your scholarship came from after you failed half your classes?" Stephanie's smug expression finally faltered. My mother made a small, choked sound of distress. "Scarlett, this isn't the time," my father began, his voice strained. Actually, I cut him off. "This is exactly the time. For years, I've been funding this entire family. The mortgage on your house, Dad. The business recovery grant, Mom's medical bills, Stephanie's apartment, car payments, credit card debt, and the scholarship that mysteriously never required any academic performance." I opened the folder and placed several documents on the table. "It's all here. Bank transfers, shell companies, trust arrangements. I own the company that owns your house. I'm the anonymous donor behind Stephanie's scholarship fund. I've paid off her credit cards 7 times in the last 3 years." The room was utterly, completely silent. Mark was staring at me in shock. This was all news to him, too. My mother had collapsed into her chair, hand over her mouth. My father stood rigidly, his face ashen. Stephanie's expression shifted from confusion to horror as she processed what I was saying. "You're lying," she whispered, but her voice lacked all conviction. "The pregnancy report isn't the only fake document in this family, Stephanie. The difference is mine were created to help you, not hurt you." I turned to address our stunned guests. "I apologize for this family drama. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. Mark and I look forward to celebrating with you at our wedding tomorrow, assuming we still have one after all these revelations." As I walked out of the dining room, I heard Stephanie begin to sob. Real tears this time. Not the performative ones she'd perfected over the years. A part of me felt terrible for exposing her this way, but a larger part felt an overwhelming, incredible relief. The web of lies I'd been maintaining for years had become its own trap. And maybe, just maybe, this painful truth was our only way forward. Did your family ever hide important secrets from each other, thinking it was for the best? I genuinely thought I was protecting everyone, preserving their dignity. But keeping all these financial arrangements secret? It just set us up for an even bigger explosion. If you're still with me at this halfway point, drop a comment below and tell me, do you think I should have revealed everything earlier? Or was this the only way? This story, trust me, is about to take an even more intense turn that I never saw coming. After I left the rehearsal dinner, I drove aimlessly for nearly an hour, ignoring the constant buzzing of my phone. Mark finally reached me with a text. It simply read, "I'm at your place whenever you're ready to talk. No pressure. I love you." His simple message cut through my emotional numbness. I drove home to find him waiting on the porch swing, 2 glasses of wine beside him. When I sat down, he didn't pepper me with questions or judgments. He just put his arm around me and waited. "I should have told you," I finally said, "about the money, about all of it." "Yes, you should have," he agreed quietly. "But I understand why you didn't. Scarlett, I've watched how your family treats you for 2 years. You're the responsible one, the fixer, the achiever who never gets the same praise or attention as your sister. You found a way to help them without becoming their ATM or changing how they see you. It wasn't honest, but it was kind, in a complicated way." His understanding brought fresh tears to my eyes. "What happens now?" I asked. "That depends," he said, gently squeezing my hand. "Do you still want to marry me tomorrow?" Despite everything, I laughed. "That's the only thing I'm still sure about." Mark smiled. "Then we'll figure out the rest together." My moment of peace was interrupted by my phone ringing again. My father. For the 12th time. I finally answered. "We need to talk," he said, his voice grave. "Everyone's at the house, including Stephanie." The emergency family meeting was as uncomfortable as I expected. My parents' living room, the house I'd secretly been paying for, felt suffocating. My mother sat rigid on the sofa, eyes red from crying. My father paced by the fireplace. Stephanie was curled in an armchair, looking smaller than I'd seen her in years. "Explain everything," my father demanded the moment I walked in. "From the beginning." So I did. I told them about the company acquisition, the money I'd made, discovering their financial troubles, and my elaborate, well-intentioned plan to help without changing our family dynamic. I explained the shell companies, the fake scholarship fund, the business grants, and all the times I'd secretly bailed out Stephanie. "Why didn't you just tell us?" my mother asked, her voice breaking. "Why all the deception? Would you have accepted my help?" I countered. "Would it have changed how you treat me compared to Stephanie? Or would I have just become the family bank, while still hearing about how special and precious she is?" My father flinched. "We don't favor, Dad, please," I interrupted. My entire childhood, I heard, "Why can't you be more like Stephanie," when it came to being sociable. But never, "Why can't Stephanie be more like Scarlett," when it came to responsibility or achievement. I paid for her apartment while she dropped out of classes, and you still praised her for her independence while asking why I worked so much. An uncomfortable, heavy silence filled the room. Finally, Stephanie spoke. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "About the money, any of it. That was the point." "But why? Why help me when I've been so awful to you?" "Because you're my sister," I said simply. "And because I thought if I removed the financial stresses, maybe our family could just be normal." Stephanie unfolded herself from the armchair and walked to the center of the room. "I need to tell you all something," she said, her voice steadier than I expected. "Scarlett's right about the pregnancy. I faked it. I was going to pretend to have complications during the ceremony tomorrow." She swallowed hard. "But that's not all. I also contacted Mark's ex-girlfriend and invited her to object during the ceremony. And I've been trying to get Mark's attention since the day they got engaged." My mother gasped. "Stephanie, how could you?" "Because I'm jealous, okay?" Stephanie's voice rose, raw and pain-filled. "I've always been jealous of Scarlett. Everyone thinks I was the favorite, but being the favorite just meant no one expected anything from me. Do you know what it's like living in the shadow of someone like her? Perfect grades, perfect career, perfect fiancé. I'm a college dropout working retail at 26. And now I find out I couldn't even manage that without my big sister secretly funding everything. Her raw honesty stunned me. For the first time, I saw my sister not as my rival or the pampered favorite, but as someone who had been deeply damaged by the same unhealthy family dynamic that had hurt me, just in a different, more insidious way. My father sank into a chair, looking every one of his 63 years. "We failed you both," he said quietly. "Scarlett, we put too much responsibility on you and took you for granted. Stephanie, we didn't give you the structure and expectations you needed to thrive." My mother wiped her eyes. "What happens now, Scarlett? Will you keep supporting us?" The naked anxiety in her question confirmed what I'd always feared, that financial support was the only real value I had to them. Before I could answer, Mark spoke from the doorway where he'd been quietly observing the whole thing. "I think that's the wrong question, Mrs. Preston," he said gently. "Maybe the first question should be how to rebuild trust in this family, not who's paying for what." I'd never loved him more than in that moment. "The wedding is postponed," I announced. "Mark and I will decide later if and when we reschedule. As for financial support," I took a deep breath. "It stops today. All of it." "But the mortgage," my father began. "You have 2 months of payments left in the account," I told him. "That's enough time to figure out your next steps. Stephanie, your lease is paid through the end of the month. You can't just cut us off," my mother protested. "I can," I said. "And I am. Not to punish you, but because this arrangement isn't healthy for any of us. I've enabled dependencies that have stunted our growth as a family." My pronouncement was met with shocked silence. Stephanie was the first to recover. "She's right," she said, surprising everyone. "This isn't normal or healthy. I need to stand on my own 2 feet for once." In the days that followed, our extended family took sides. Some cousins thought I was cruel for cutting off support. Others praised me for finally establishing boundaries. I started seeing a therapist to process my complicated feelings about my family and my role in creating the unhealthy dynamic. Mark stood by me through it all, never judging, always supportive. One night, as we discussed whether to reschedule the wedding or just elope, he offered an insight that changed my entire perspective. "You know what's interesting about your family?" he said. "You've all been living according to a script about who you are, the responsible one, the favorite, the struggling parents. But none of you chose those roles. You inherited them and never questioned them. So what do we do?" I asked. "Rewrite the script," he said simply. "All of you." With that thought firmly in mind, I approached the task of rebuilding my family relationships. Not as the responsible big sister or secret benefactor, but simply as Scarlett, figuring it out one day at a time. 1 month after the dramatic rehearsal dinner revelation, the full impact of the financial reckoning hit my family like a tidal wave. Stephanie received an eviction notice when she couldn't make her rent payment. Her car, which I'd been making payments on for years, was at risk of repossession. My parents, who had been living in a house they couldn't afford and maintaining a lifestyle beyond their actual means, faced the harsh reality of their financial situation. I maintained my distance, but stayed informed through Mark, who had unexpectedly become our family mediator. He reported that my parents were arguing constantly about money. My mother wanted to beg me for help. My father insisted they needed to solve their own problems for once. "Your dad's looking at retirement account options," Mark told me after having coffee with him. "And your mom is researching how to sell the house themselves to avoid realtor fees." "And Stephanie?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "She's applied for 7 jobs in the past week. Actual full-time positions, not just retail." I felt a complex mix of emotions: guilt for their struggles, pride that they were finally taking action, and lingering hurt from years of family dynamics that had led to this breaking point. After 6 weeks of separation, I agreed to meet my parents for lunch at a modest diner, their choice, which itself signaled a change. My mother had lost weight, my father's hair seemed grayer, but they both greeted me with genuine warmth rather than the tense formality I'd expected. "We've been working with a financial advisor," my father said after we ordered. "Creating a realistic budget based on our actual income, not supplements." "We should have done this years ago," my mother added, her eyes meeting mine. "We're selling the house." Found a nice condo that's within our means. I nodded, genuinely surprised by their pragmatic approach. Scarlett, my father said, leaning forward. We owe you an apology. Not just for taking your money without knowing, but for all the years before that. We placed too much responsibility on you and gave too little structure to Stephanie. We see that now. We've started family therapy, my mother added. All three of us. We'd like you to join when you're ready. Their humility, their self-awareness, genuinely caught me off guard. I'd expected defensiveness or manipulation, not genuine accountability. After lunch, Mark suggested a compromise that surprised me. What if he set up a proper, transparent financial arrangement? Not secretly funding everything, but helping with specific things with clear boundaries. Like offering to help your parents with a down payment on the condo as a gift, not a secret payment. Or helping Stephanie with tuition if she goes back to school, but with clear academic requirements. The idea had merit. It would allow me to help my family without enabling dependency or resentment. After much consideration, I called a family meeting at Mark's house, neutral territory, to discuss the path forward. Stephanie arrived first, looking noticeably different. Gone were the designer clothes and perfectly styled hair. She wore jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. I got a job, she announced without preamble, at Westfield Architecture. Mark's friend Carlos hired me as an office manager. That's great, I said, genuinely pleased. How's it going? Hard, she admitted. I've never had to be somewhere at 8 a.m. every day, actually accountable for things. But I kind of like it. Having structure, I mean. My parents arrived next, bringing a folder of financial documents. We've worked out a budget, my father explained, based solely on our income and the equity we'll get from downsizing. And we'd like your input, my mother added. Not your money. I reviewed their plans, impressed by their thoroughness. The condo they'd found was modest but nice, and their new budget accounted for all necessities, eliminating the luxuries they'd grown accustomed to. This looks solid, I said, returning the folder. I'd like to make a proposal, though. I outlined a limited support plan, a one-time gift to help with a condo down payment, contingent on them sticking to their budget, tuition assistance for Stephanie if she returned to school, contingent on maintaining an A/B average, and a small emergency fund for true family crises, administered by an independent trustee. This isn't an ATM arrangement, I clarified. These are specific supports, with clear boundaries and expectations. To my surprise, my father shook his head. We appreciate the offer, Scarlett. But we need to do this ourselves for now. Maybe revisit in a year, when we've proven to ourselves, as much as to you, that we can be financially responsible. Their refusal of my help was perhaps the strongest evidence that real change was occurring. As we continued talking, another revelation emerged. Stephanie had been stealing from our parents for years, taking cash from their wallets and business, contributing to their financial problems. I'd convinced myself they owed it to me, she admitted, not meeting anyone's eyes. I never thought of it as stealing. The admission stunned me. All this time, I'd been secretly supporting everyone, and Stephanie had been secretly undermining that support. The dysfunction ran deeper than I'd realized. After the meeting, Stephanie asked to speak with me privately. We walked to a nearby park, sitting on a bench overlooking a small pond. I hit rock bottom last week, she said, watching ducks glide across the water. Got down to my last $20. No credit, no savings, nothing. I went to a pawn shop to sell Mom's bracelet that I'd borrowed. Did you sell it? She shook her head. I couldn't go through with it. That's when I realized how far I'd fallen. Ready to sell a stolen family heirloom for cash. I walked out and applied for jobs all day instead. Her vulnerability cracked something open in me. For the first time in years, maybe ever, we were having an honest conversation, without pretense or competition. I never wanted to hurt you, she continued. Not really. I just wanted what you had. Not the money, but the confidence, the certainty. You always knew who you were and what you wanted. I laughed softly. That's the biggest myth about me. I've been terrified and uncertain plenty of times. I just didn't show it. Why not? Because I was the responsible one. The achiever. That was my role. And I was the screw-up, Stephanie said quietly. The eternal child who couldn't be trusted with responsibility. We sat in silence, contemplating how we'd both been constrained by these family-assigned identities. I found your journal, I admitted. That's how I knew about the fake pregnancy plan. Instead of anger, Stephanie looked relieved. I'm glad you did. I don't think I would have had the courage to stop myself. As sunset painted the sky in vibrant oranges and pinks, Stephanie reached over and took my hand. I'm sorry, Scarlett. For everything. I want to be better. Not like you, I'll never be like you, but a better version of me. I squeezed her hand. I'd like to know that version of Stephanie. Walking back, I realized Mark was right. We were rewriting the script, creating new possibilities for who we could be as individuals and as a family. The process would be messy, imperfect, but for the first time in years, it felt authentic. 6 months after that dramatic rehearsal dinner revelation, I stood in the small dressing room of a beachside venue, adjusting my simple white dress. Mark and I had decided to move forward with a much smaller, more intimate wedding. 40 guests instead of 200. A local restaurant reception instead of a hotel ballroom. Wildflowers instead of elaborate arrangements. You look beautiful, my mother said from the doorway. Our relationship had transformed over the past months. Without the secret financial ties, and with the help of family therapy, we'd started building a more honest connection. She was learning to see me as a complete person, rather than just the responsible one. And I was learning to share my vulnerabilities with her. Is Stephanie here? I asked, trying to sound casual. My mother nodded. She's helping arrange the chairs on the beach. She's nervous about seeing you. Stephanie wasn't in my wedding party this time. That trust would take longer to rebuild. But I had invited her as a guest, a first step toward healing. The changes in our family over those 6 months had been remarkable. My parents had sold their large house and moved into a comfortable condo they could actually afford. My father had taken a part-time consulting position to supplement his income, and my mother had started a small online business selling handcrafted jewelry. They weren't wealthy, but they were making ends meet. And honestly, Stephanie had surprised everyone with her transformation. Still working at Westfield Architecture, she'd received her first promotion and was taking evening classes to complete her business degree. She lived in a modest apartment with a roommate, drove a used car she'd purchased herself, and was slowly building her credit score through responsible financial habits. Our family therapy sessions had been challenging, but incredibly enlightening. We'd uncovered patterns of behavior that stretched back generations. My father's parents had favored his younger brother, creating a template he unconsciously replicated with his own daughters. My mother's family had valued appearance over substance, explaining her discomfort with financial transparency. These insights didn't excuse the dysfunction, but they helped us understand and address it. Mark and I had established clear boundaries about future family financial support. We created a small education fund for Stephanie, with specific conditions. She needed to maintain her grades, continue therapy, and demonstrate financial responsibility. For my parents, we offered matching contributions to a retirement account, encouraging their independence while providing a safety net. It's time, my father said, appearing at the door. He looked different, too. His posture was more relaxed, his smile more genuine. Ready? I took his arm, and we made our way down to the beach, where chairs had been arranged in a semicircle facing the ocean. Mark waited near the water's edge, handsome in his light gray suit. Our closest friends and family members turned to watch as my father walked me down the sandy aisle. I spotted Stephanie in the second row, wearing a simple blue dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. Our eyes met briefly, and she gave me a small, sincere smile. Not the performative grin she'd perfected over the years, but something real and a little sad. The ceremony was brief and heartfelt. Mark and I exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, promising honesty, partnership, and growth. As we sealed our marriage with a kiss, I felt a sense of rightness that had been missing from our original wedding plans. This ceremony reflected who we truly were, not who we thought we should be. At the reception, held at a local restaurant overlooking the water, Stephanie approached me hesitantly. Congratulations, she said, keeping a respectful distance. Everything was beautiful. Thank you for coming, I replied. It means a lot. An awkward silence stretched between us until Stephanie took a deep breath. I have something for you. Not a wedding gift exactly, but, well, here. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a business plan, meticulously researched, professionally presented, for a small graphic design company she wanted to launch after completing her degree. I'm not asking for funding, she clarified quickly. I just wanted your opinion, as someone who built something successful. I was touched by the gesture and what it represented. Stephanie seeking my input as an equal, not manipulation or competition. I'd be happy to review it, I said. Maybe we could get coffee next week to discuss it. Her face lit up with genuine pleasure. I'd like that. Later, during the toasts, Stephanie surprised everyone by standing and asking to speak. Mark squeezed my hand as she nervously approached the microphone. I'm not in the wedding party, she began, her voice trembling slightly. And there are good reasons for that. But I wanted to say something to my sister and Mark. She paused, collecting herself. Scarlett, you've always been my benchmark. The person I measured myself against and always fell short. It made me resent you instead of recognizing how much I could learn from you. What I've realized over these past months is that your success didn't take anything away from me. Your light doesn't diminish mine. It can help me find my own path. Tears pricked my eyes as she continued. Mark, thank you for loving my sister and for your kindness to our family, even when we didn't deserve it. And thank you both for giving me the chance to be here today, to witness the beginning of your life together. She raised her glass. To Scarlett and Mark. May your honesty with each other create the foundation for a lifetime of happiness. After the toasts, while Mark danced with my mother, my father sat beside me. I have a confession, he said quietly. I knew about your financial support earlier than you think. Not the extent of it, but I suspected. How? I asked, surprised. The timing was too convenient. Our business troubles easing right when your company was acquired. But I didn't say anything because... He looked away, embarrassed. Because it was easier not to. I let pride and shame keep me from having an honest conversation with my own daughter. We all made mistakes, Dad, I said gently. He nodded. But we're finding our way now, aren't we? As a family. Yes, I agreed. I think we are. Our honeymoon was simple, a week at a quiet resort in the Caribbean. Mark and I swam, read, and talked about our future. We discussed having children someday and how we would approach parenting differently than our own families had. We'll make different mistakes, Mark pointed out pragmatically. No parent is perfect. True, I agreed. But we'll be honest about them. No family secrets. No assigned roles. No financial deceptions, even well-intentioned ones. On our last evening, watching the sunset from our balcony, I reflected on the journey of the past year. The fake pregnancy report, meant to ruin my wedding, had ultimately saved our family. It forced us to confront truths we'd all been avoiding. Stephanie's jealousy and my secret financial control had been symptoms of a deeper dysfunction that had finally been brought to light. When we returned home, I followed through on my promise to review Stephanie's business plan. We met at a coffee shop, and I was genuinely impressed by the thought she'd put into her concept. This is really good, I told her. Honestly, you've identified a solid niche, and your financial projections are conservative but promising. Really? Her face lit up with pride. I've been researching business programs. I want to apply for my MBA after I finish my bachelor's degree. I think you'd be excellent at it, I said, meaning it. Have you thought about applying for scholarships? Actually, yes, she smiled. Real ones this time. As we continued discussing her plans, I realized we were having our first conversation as adults. Not as the responsible sister and the favorite, not as the achiever and the screw-up, but as two women finding their way in the world, connected by blood and, increasingly, by choice. 6 months later, Stephanie was accepted into a competitive business program with a partial scholarship. My parents had settled comfortably into their new, more modest lifestyle. Mark and I had bought a new house, with a guest room that had already hosted each family member for visits. The journey wasn't perfect. We still had disagreements and moments of falling back into old patterns. But the foundation had shifted. From secrets and resentment to honesty and growth. The sister who had once faked a pregnancy to ruin my wedding was now someone I spoke with weekly, sharing advice and genuine connection. The parents who had once unknowingly accepted my financial support now stood proudly on their own feet, with appropriate boundaries and transparent communication. As for me, I was learning that being the fixer, the responsible one, wasn't my only identity. I could be vulnerable, ask for help, make mistakes, and still be valued. The control I'd maintained through secret financial support had been an illusion, one that ultimately hurt everyone, including myself. Real control, I discovered, came from honesty about who we are, what we need, and how we show up for each other. And sometimes, the greatest gift we can give our family isn't money or security. It's the truth, however uncomfortable it might be. Have you ever experienced a family betrayal that ended up transforming your relationships for the better? My sister's attempt to ruin my wedding actually saved our family by forcing us to confront truths we'd all been avoiding. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more family drama and resolution stories like mine. Share this video with someone who might be struggling with family dynamics of their own. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these complicated relationships can be incredibly healing. Drop a comment below about your own family karma moments. And thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Remember, sometimes what looks like an ending is actually the beginning of something much, much better. Until next time, if this story shocked you or hit close to home, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts.